Okay, so let's start with this speaking practice for 10 minutes. For 10 minutes. Okay, so let's start it. Uh, but before that, but uh, wait a sec. But before that, let me edit. Let me use the uh, okay. First, uh, let me edit some camera. Okay, so it's good for now. Let's do it. It's gonna be here. It's gonna be here. It's gonna be here. Let's say with your public speaking, right? So you're about to go down on a stage and feel anxiety. The usually default state of someone who doesn't want to have experience is just figure who know in advance story about the experience. I mean, anxiety is kind of just by mere talk of what you have to do. Then once you feel the butterflies, you or work with them, right? You contract your mind contracts around with your conversation with yourself. It's not a habit that is like right. I'm this person who just I can see people who is all the time. They are relaxed. I'm unhappy. When and you're taking yourself not noticing it's because your thoughts behind was faster as they can, and they seem to be the right to identify with each thought that's immersed in consciousness. And most people live their lives as thought there's no alternative. They're not given a rule book for how to operate a human mind, right? And there's no place normal the education we are honestly even indicated there's an alternative here, and so we get the kind of somber attitude out there or the adulthood or more or less the mean that we have. We always have the minds that we have. There is, we the only thing we can do to really upgrade our firmware is to just add new content. We can read books, we can develop interest, but there's nothing at the root level of our emotional and cognitive life can change. If you live anxiety, there's actually a place from which you can just feel it, right? And be actually indifferent to it or anything else. You could be feeling, just you notice that even an unpleasant sensation. The reality that anxiety isn't even that unpleasant is so close to excitement in its absolute physiology. The really difference between excitement and anxiety is more or less just the framing. It's just the story you think of yourself. We don't felt these tingles and it's suddenly underlying response right before we're about to go on a roller coaster. That's part of why you're going on a roller coaster. You like the experience and the fact that you feel that you're about to have an interview or you're about to talk on the stage. That's intolerable, right? It's just dropping back and realizing the power of farming is again is this skill that is fairly excellent, but when many people are learning it, the secret sauce. Most of what people care about can be taught as a skill. Well, maybe is a skill, it's not suffering unnecessarily. Is a skill noticing your emotional life and regulating negative emotion is a skill. The moment you begin practicing mindfulness, we just learning to pay close attention to the nature of your experience. You're not adding anything to experience, you're just noticing. It's like to be you moment to moment, but in a way that is not react. You are perceiving or missing, pushing the unpleasant and over you just that is a story of telling yourself a story you are thinking, and you can either become more and more mindful of what that interrupt that more and more. You can reframe this continually and tell yourself a better story, but you can actually just engineer, you know, you can change the code you are running moment to moment. This sort of use of negative imagination where you think of all of the bad things that happens to you, right? Just you're still in traffic, driving into a job that you don't like, and you're frustrated. You can think of all the things that could happen to you, right? That happened. And if any one of them happened to you, you would consider your prayers answered if you could just be returned to this moment. And you could be the guy who today is going to find out you have 2 months to live, right? And you have to the next 2 months spent just unwinding your worthy affairs, right? You're not that guy, right? It hasn't happened to you yet. It's just more thinking, but it can happen a profound effect. You can reframe your experience in a way that doesn't actually change anything materials about your circumstances as the light in the net. I mean, techniques like that are just a matter of invoking useful concepts skillfully. So picture this: you're in an airplane and it begins to bounce, and even those who also aren't so they're afraid to fly, and a few answers in significant turbulence. Now, what do we have to answers? Well, we somewhat thought that turbulence might be dangerous, right? That it makes it more likely the plane will crash. And of course, truly, significant turbulence can cause the plane to crash. This is we know from the statistic of plane crashes is a very, very rare thing. So now, unless you are in that rare, horrible experience of being actually thrown around the cabin, as injured, it's very likely that the bouncing is not physically painful, right? It's you're not being harmed by this sensation, and in other contexts, you subject yourself to even more violent bouncing and not to be worried about it at all. You might go into a quiet amusement park, which exerts great force on your body, and you do it because you're seeking experience out. On an airplane, it's totally unwelcome to you. But if you just take the raw sensations, then now your problem is what they pretend. It's your interpretation of them that worries you. There are at least two levels at which you can deal with this. First is to think conceptually about the nature of the problem and about what you fear. It is irrational or to worry that your plane will crash. If you're experiencing turbulence, no, it actually isn't the likelihood of dying in a plane crash. It's minuscule. Over the course of your journey, you should begin to worry as you leave the airport and get in an Uber or taxi or drive yourself home on your own car. So you should understand that. You should understand that every moment in the plane is in fact safer than many moments you spend on the ground. Certainly safer than when you're walking as a pedestrian fixated on your smartphone and stepping into the crosswalk. That's when you're entering into church. Those are the moments where the sweat should begin beating up on your forehead. So when you're in a plane, and it's begun to bounce. It is in fact unreasonable to worry that bouncing means much of everything. If you understand that, that's what it can have an effect. You can become willing to just experience the raw sensations of turbulence. Then you can cease to interpret the experience as a sign of actual danger. The level at which you can address is and this they are totally compatible. Moves and recommend both of them is to become mindful of the feeling of anxiety itself. What is it and what it does mean? Well, it's just sensation, it's just a pattern of energy in your body, and it actually doesn't mean anything. At the level of raw sensation, you might have thoughts about it, and reality much of your thinking is in that moment in purpose, or figure out how to not to feel that way, or not let it get worse. But if you step out of your thoughts and just become willing to feel the raw sensation of anxiety, you surrender your resistance to it. Just feel it as energy. It can lose its meaning. It can become very difficult to distinguish from another framing, be a positive experience like excitement. How do you know the difference between being anxious about something that's about to happen and being excited for the most part of the thoughts of your thinking? When you're feeling that arousal as a cognitive conceptual overlay on top of this raw feeling, you can constantly reframe these things, or you can step out of it altogether and just feel the raw energy of this experience. And when you do that, Anxiety can be like any other experience that it has no meaning for you as a person. Really, this doesn't say anything about you. So let's say you have a rash on your elbow and it's itch. Okay, that doesn't say anything deep about you as a person. That has no physiological indications. This might be unpleasant. This might be extraordinary unpleasant, but it doesn't reach into your sense of who you are. The deepest way to respond to anxiety. Again, I'm not saying that there's no case in which the rocks are valuable or even necessary. They may very well be, but for anxiety, it's in its more ordinary range. The deep way to respond to it is to become willing to feel it, to cease to interpret it as important and to function in the midst of it, and then it will pass. Anxiety rises and falls like any other emotion, and if you're not continually thinking the thoughts are answers, actually can't stay around very long. It is your water unpleasant emotions like anger and sadness, and they are continually resurrected by our thoughts, and we are spending most of our time thinking without knowing that we are thinking. So mindfulness is, in particular is a very good antidote to this problem. But the trick is you can't apply it as an antidote. You can be mindful of anxiety so that it will go away. When you become with it, just let it burn bright in you and discover that it doesn't matter. It simply comes and it goes, and you can functional and you can functional. Mm, okay, so that is the end of for so that is the end of this 10 minutes speaking. So now I'm gonna move to so now I'm gonna move to the 30 minutes speaking. Okay, so let's start it.